What are instance and static properties in JavaScript classes? Imagine building a set of tools that can create many different objects, each with its own unique features, but some tools are shared across all objects. That's what JavaScript classes help us do. They let us define blueprints for objects, making code easier to organize. But within these classes, there are two types of properties to understand: instance properties and static properties. Knowing the difference is key to writing clear and efficient code. Let's start with instance properties. These are like personal belongings for each object created from the class. When you make a new object, it gets its own copy of these properties. You usually define them inside the constructor function or as fields directly in the class. To access them, you use the keyword this, which points to the current object. For example, if you have a class called car, each car will have its own color or model stored as instance properties. Changing one car's color won't affect another's, because each has its own copy. Now, static properties are different. They belong to the class itself, not to any specific object. You declare them using the static keyword inside the class. Static properties are accessed through the class name, not through individual objects. Think of static properties as shared data or tools that all objects can use. For example, you might want to keep track of how many cars you've created. You can store that count as a static property. Every time you create a new car, you increase this shared counter. No matter how many cars you make, there is only one copy of this static property. Let's look at a simple example. Imagine a class called user. Each user has a name, which is an instance property. When you create a new user, you give it a name, and that name is stored inside that specific user object. But you also have a static property called user count. This keeps track of how many users have been created. Every time a new user is made, you increase the user count. You access this static property through the class name, not through the individual user objects. Here's how it looks in code. Class user, instance property, name, static property. Static user count is equal to 0. Constructor name. This name is equal to name. Assign the name to the specific user. User count plus plus. Increase the total user count. Instance method. Greet. Console log hello, this name $. Static method. Static get user count. Return user count. Const user1 is equal to new user, Alice. Const user2 is equal to new user, Bob. User1 greet, hello Alice. Console log user get user count, 2. Console log user1 user count, undefined. In this example, each user has their own name, which is an instance property. But the user count is shared across all users because it's a static property. When you create a new user, the static counter increases. You can access the static method getUserCount to see how many users exist. Notice that trying to access user count directly from an instance doesn't work because it belongs to the class, not the individual object. Understanding the difference between instance and static properties helps you organize your code better. It allows you to keep data that is unique to each object separate from data shared across all objects. Since modern JavaScript introduced the class syntax along with static fields and methods, using these features makes your code cleaner and easier to manage. It's a simple concept but a powerful one for building scalable web applications.